transgressing the rules of kid music.
Well, I mean, I think the nice thing about the first project that we did was that it was not educational at all, and so it didn't have any sort of like artificially like this is better for you kind of bullshit that kids are often subjected to.
Yeah.
I mean, we felt like we were making like The Sopranos for kids. Yeah.
Sleepwalkers takes on a whole new
And it's just like enjoy the world of your imagination a little, a little bit extra. But the kid stuff turned out to be like a whole other, surprisingly lucrative and surprisingly, big second chapter for us.
It turns out the kids were loaded.
Well, because that's like when I watched the end of the movie, it's like, it feels like we're summing everything up, and I was like, oh no, it's like it's about to take a whole nother turn into platinum records.
Yeah, right. No, it was definitely things really opened up right as the movie wraps up.
Yeah.
So
Which is really when we were making this, I think we were thinking about, and maybe talking to you about how we didn't want it to be the last waltz. We were obviously way into what we thought was like had already been an incredibly long career, but we were like, but we're still here, we're still doing this, and we're kind of still reinventing it. And as it turns out, we were not even halfway done.
No, that's
Yeah. I have to say, I do watch The Last Waltz with different eyes. I think like Robert Robinson at the tender age of 27 or 4 years old that's a long time to be on the road. 40 years is a really long time to be on the road.
Well, it's funny because they played the Sunset Boulevard trailer before the movie tonight. Our friend Maggie, who built this temple, her husband Dan had posted that they had come to see Sunset Boulevard, and shocked to learn that Norman Desmond is 50 and very upset about it. That is what's setting off everything that's happening in Sunset Boulevard is that she turns 50.
And how old was Gloria Swanson when she?
I mean, watching the trailer, I was like, maybe.
Yeah. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Well,
Thinking about one of the things is watching the movie is just thinking about everything that's changed in terms of the way music is distributed, and you guys were part of that in many ways. Your first internet album and the ways that you transformed ballad song. But do you think that you had a sense better than other bands, or just you were ready in other ways because you had thought of how to do things differently, get music to the people who wanted it, to your fans, to others, that when the companies all were like, oh, we have to rethink how we do things, oh, now there's everything is just going to be stuff you download to your phone, you guys were ready for it sooner, cut a little bit, maybe?
I don't think we ever pioneered any, I mean, we were, part of it was we were just very eclectic in the way that we were ready to adopt any oddball means of getting the music out, and as I was speaking to you about in the lobby earlier, one thing we didn't anticipate in this movie was that when we were discussing dial-a-song in the film, was that in the future, everyone would be on dial-a-song. Everyone listens to music on their phone. That was not something we could have anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I said to you that struck me when watching it, which I thought it was profound at the time to think about when you said, it's just you and the machine. But there have been several things recently where people that have been these art projects that have been these very things like you're the only person in the audience. It's just the artist in you. And maybe that is because of the idea that everything is now, it's so vast and you're just impersonal, that in the same way that people want to have record players or whatever, it is how can we make the digital into something mono, you're supposed to talk now.
Right. It's not a question.
Right, I'm just looking for that farmer bro guy.
One thing that one thing that I've noticed just in terms of when you guys re-released Main Car, you talked about it being a lost album. And it was interesting to me because I didn't remember, even when we were going around with the movie and talking about the movie, which is about, the making of and then the
Right, the movie has tons of stuff
it's about
production.
yeah.
And it's not really filled in that much in the movie because I think it ended really before the actual events that really ended up contouring how Main Car was received happened. But we made this album that in some, to be perfectly candid with all these show business insiders that are assembled here tonight, I know we're in Los Angeles and everybody's part of the industry that we call the industry. It was really kind of staged as a comeback record. Like we were working with like big producers, we were working with Adam Schlesinger, we were working with Clive and Alan from the Flood album, and we really invested a lot in sort of the abstract idea that there was some sort of reproducible thing that we could do that could actually make sense for us, like on the charts, in doing a pop record. And of course, like all of that was completely obliterated by September 11th. And then the record company that we were working with was out of business within like weeks or maybe a month and a half or something. But basically, there was years where it wasn't even on iTunes, like in an era where everything was on iTunes, like nothing stopped anybody, there were greatest hits albums by bands that, like 14 different greatest hits albums from like truck stop deals that they had done in 1972, like Cheap Trick were suing like 25 different people for all the weird deals they had done, and like you could not get Main Car anywhere at all. And so it did end up becoming this, and all of our stuff has been in print except for that record. So it really was this curious kind of thing that just disappeared, in spite of its ambitions to be like the most mainstream of all our records.
Yeah, so it's so funny because I feel like in that couple of years when the movie was out and you guys were would be so generous to come and like do some of these kinds of things with Shirley and I. But maybe at that point it was still like in record stores because it had gone out on September 11th. So I didn't know, like it was when you started talking about it as a lost album, I was like, oh wow, that's so crazy because it did have this feeling while you guys were making it, and in the press lead up to it as in the movie, like, this was, was all headed in a certain direction, and then obviously, like none of us.
What you're seeing at the very end on September 10th when we're promoting is, it's gonna be great, and it instead was the very end of the entire era, basically. And as I recall, we were doing a Q&A right after the film came out, and a friend of ours, I don't know if you remember this, our friend Amy, was in the audience, and she was kind of upset after watching the movie because everybody was still kind of in the aftershock of what had happened. And she said, why is there no reference to September 11th when everything leads up to that moment? Like the last thing you filmed was basically the midnight appearance we did in the record store just hours before the catastrophe. And it was a kind of a weird emotional thing, and I can't remember who answered the question, but I think at some point I said that would it would have sort of trivialized it to say, well, and that was about us, of course, that even saying, oh, we were cheated out of an album seems sort of petty.
Well, no, I think on the DVD commentary that we did with Sarah Val, I made the comment, which I always sort of regret, but like, there was a point in which Shirley and I were maybe going to stay, because we knew that you guys were doing a thing, we were going to stay, like, basically at a hotel, like, right near Ground Zero. And, it was a hotel that was like destroyed, and like, you know, so the you know, so yeah, so I mean, like, was it destroyed? It was, I mean, it was condemned, and then they destroyed it. So it was like, but it wasn't a thing where you got to go back.
You would have survived.
Oh, I'd be alive. But the point, now I'm feeling that same
Let me tell you about my 9/11.
Good time. Yeah, no, but the point being that was, that I think I said something like, the movie would have been in the room, and the movie, we would have watched the movie. And Sarah said something like that's the most important thing. Exactly. Well, not the most important thing, but for that we have it.
There are a lot of important things. You know, just think of 9/11 as a good training for pandemics.
Speaking of the pandemic, is that in the 20 plus years since we see here, has that been the most challenging time for you guys as a band? Like, just trying to figure out like how to get back on the road, and like when it's safe to get back on the road, and like can we even do stuff? And also, there was a car accident.
Oh yeah. I was in a really bad car accident. That was not good. You know, you people are alive. Celebrate yourselves. Call your mom. You know, just like, what can you do?
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, I don't want to get maudlin about it, but there's like two things in the movie where we talk about you having a bad bike accident that leads to Dial a Song, and there's the first maybe connection that you guys had.
Nothing good came out of it.
Being in the hospital and being like, everything. So did you get a bunch of cards and letters, Flansburgh?
I got a ton of cards and letters.
You didn't know, and what
I did. I got hundreds of cards and letters, which is really wild. And I actually, I had tons of time on my hands, so I actually answered all the cards and letters personally.
Yeah.
Which was,
I heard about your accident. I just dropped off Matt with my daughter at school, and there was something I posted, and I started texting with Dan Miller. He had posted a statement like, what was that like for you? Just and I know we don't want to get into like the cry thing, which we talked about in the movie, but just like, what was the like? That's such an odd thing, right? Like, you guys did your first show back after the pandemic.
Yeah, I think you know, in amongst the pandemic and everything, that I think that I've had a sort of slow reaction. I've told Glenn this already. Like, I think it freaked me out, and then there was kind of a long tail to that where I'm still freaked out a little bit. That you know, that we're mortal, and obviously we're old people now, so it's just compounding the sense of existential fragility, you know.
yeah.
It's weird. It's weird. Don't get old if you're in the Go back.
That contradicts one of your songs. Or more than one.
Yeah.
But without the accident, even just like trying to figure out like how to get back on the road, because I know you had like several times you're like, we're ready, we're back.
Oh yeah,
we're back.
we rescheduled shows like 4 or 5 times, and you know, it was good. It was interesting that it worked. You know, that you know, we've worked with a lot of rock promoters, and I don't need to put them all in the same boat. But some of them are retired cocaine dealers. You get this. There's like a frisson of disrespect when you're an artist to the very simple requests that you might have. And what was nice about the pandemic was that it taught them a certain amount of patience that I don't think they had before. So it was nice to be able to reschedule things and say, like, we want to keep the show back on track, but we might not be able to do it now, we might need to do it then, we want to keep everybody safe. And that was something that they actually had to listen to rather than just, you know, snowplow over.
Of course, the punchline was that literally the very first show that we played after we finally lifted the veil of you know, safety, immediately that evening, Flansburgh was nearly crushed to death in a car accident. So it was like, message received.
So given all that experience, and I know what like playing means to both of you, like now that you're able, I mean, Hollywood Bowl, like but you've been playing like shows,
Oh yeah.
you know, like pretty nonstop this past
year.
Yeah, like I saw you guys in January in New York, like, what does that mean, like, to actually be back and playing shows?
It's super fun, you know, I mean, it's just a regular thing for us, you know, I think the
first ones, I mean, you say it's regular, but the first ones, was it regular? Did you feel like, oh, I'm back in the club, or did you feel
it's very
like?
familiar, you know, we've done thousands of shows in our lives, like, and you know, I think, I mean, there's a weird body dysmorphia thing about doing a show where, like, a lot of times, like, you're feeling, you know, sick, or you're feeling, like, incapable of doing something, and then all of a sudden you're on stage and you actually have this sort of extra, you know, positive feeling about just, like, being fully alive. Like, it actually, I mean, it sounds, I don't know, I mean, it sounds jive, but, like, it is real. It's like, it is a positive thing. It's a fun thing to do in your life. And you know, I mean, you know, you don't even feel old.
I do. As the elder member of the band.
Well, good luck with that.
Wait another year, Flansburgh.
I mean, I love the current incarnation of the band. I love Dan and Danny and Marty, and I love that the horns are out of you. And having, you know, you talked in the film about that you feel fortunate to be old enough to play with Doc Severinsen.
That's a weird thing to say. That's sort of backwards, like, fortunately, I've been alive so long that I did this thing way in the past.
Well, it was like 9 years at that point. But I feel fortunate to have been old enough that I saw you guys with the tape recorder in Missouri at the Blue Note in the 80s. And I'm just kind of curious, like, do you ever think about, we recreated a little bit of that kind of duo sense in some of the pieces in the concert. And do you ever think about, like, and not to say you would, because you open for yourselves now too, do you ever do that? Like, I haven't seen that.
We did probably a while ago now, we did a show in Brooklyn where we got out the reel to reel. And so half the show was that, John and I in the reel to reel.
And nobody cared.
It was really cool because we were able to do a lot of stuff that we couldn't do with the band.
I thought it was super cool, and I spent a ton of time working on putting it together. Nobody cared.
No.
I understand. But you're old.
No, a friend of mine watched that show, and we did this brilliant thing where we had a camera pointing down at the reel to reel, and then the reel to reel was projected to this gigantic size behind us on stage. And my friend was, I don't know if I told you this, my friend was watching it going, I can see exactly how much of the show is left.
One of the reasons why I even came out to that show was because of the MTV stuff that you guys were already starting to put on MTV, and it felt so like amazing, these videos that you guys were making with Adam. And in the time since the movie's done, like, you're continuing to make like many more videos for your albums, for your projects that like live out in the world. And I know that you like are constantly seeking out like talented young people who like are doing animation or doing like, you know, any kind of different sort of approach to things. And I'm curious how do you think about that now? The idea of what a music video is and what a video means to a band has changed so much since that time. John Flansburgh.
I think, you know, obviously the culture is changing, you know, continues to change in different ways because, you know, MTV had its moment, really peaked out, and then sort of receded. But now we live in this sort of TikTok moment where lots of things are returning, and there's all this visual stuff attached to music. So it goes in cycles. But you know, I guess for me, working with a lot of animators and working with a lot of video directors, there's this thing that I can't help but think, like the 21st century for visual artists is a lot like the late 20th century for musicians, which is like, there's making stuff in your bedroom on a 4-track, or making stuff in your like basement on an 8-track is not that different than doing something on After Effects, doing something like in, just editing something together visually on your computer now. Like you can do so much more as an individual creatively now. You don't need to rely on that many other people. Like you just, get your friend to help out, and you're halfway there. And that's a great world to be in as a creative person. I just think it's like there's a lot of opportunities for people in visual arts to do, moving work, to do stuff with video and do stuff with animation. And it's just interesting to work with those people because they can do stuff independently, and that work really appeals to me.
And you've also done like you did that book with Marcel Sama.
Yeah.
And you've done a book, which how do you think about it in terms of like, okay, let's do, instead of just putting out another album, let's also combine this with like some visual.
Right. Well, I leave those questions to Mr. Flansburgh, because he is a visual artist. Basically, John thinks about packaging, and I think about the content.
Yeah.
I'm
several divisions, brand director, and a lot of it is collaborative, but it's also like who you work with. You find the people to work with, like Brian Carlson and Paul Serra, are like the people who put together both with us. They're incredibly like creative, interesting people. But it's also like, Brian Carlson is a recent graduate. I went to the Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and like the first time I talked to him, he was like on a cell phone outside of the bodega with like the most shit reception in the world, and I'm like, dude, like we're having a real conversation about a thing. Can't you get somewhere where you get more than one nugget of cell phone reception? It's like, no!
Yeah. You're the man.
I'm losing you. I can't hear you.
Well, speaking of the music videos and stuff you've done lately, I feel like I kind of got away with something that I was able to sneak in a little bit of the Rabbit Child video.
Oh, yeah.
Into the film. And I know that when we were putting together the DVD with all of the extras, and that they were, it's a good DVD, right? Like,
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the things is that I asked Mr. Linnell whether we could put the Rabbit Child video on the DVD, and he sent me an email back that I printed out, and I have it on my bulletin board for the past 20 plus years, and I'm going to read it to you now. I appreciate you asking, AJ, and before I give you my answer, I should reveal to you that somewhere there exists a really funny, cute video of me on camera when I was around 5. Explaining to Alan Funt why there is a Santa Claus. I don't know exactly how you would go about getting your mitts on it, but it was aired in, I think, 1964, perhaps 1965, and I'm the second to last kid on the clip, wearing a stripy shirt and saying something like, I think he's there because I know he is, because I think he's there. I was paid $20 for the appearance, which was a lot of money for a 5-year-old in those days. Anyway, I'm offering this as a probably inobtainable consolation prize. There's no way I could agree to the Rabbit Child. Going down on my permanent record, Jesus fuck, no way. So, I just love that. So, what do you look, when you look back at, you both talked about each other.
I thought we were going to see it now.
But that was it.
I found that you can actually order these old Candy camera reels. Yeah, it's way way later, and
So we could actually.
I think I began the process, and it was just too complicated, and at the time it just seemed like, also it was kind of a rip-off, like they were asking
They're
way too much money.
Okay, but it was for airing or for people just like for their personal?
I'll start with GoFundMe. $100,000.
I feel like now that we've introduced this into the public consciousness, it will be on YouTube.
Somebody's gonna figure it out, yeah.
Any museum could do it.
I mean, you guys both, I mean, so when we made the movie, you guys were looking back on, not 20, but 19 years of, certainly you've known each other longer, not known each other longer, but 19 years of being a band together. What do you think, is there anything different about how you view the band and your partnership now, as opposed to what we talked about when we made these interviews in 2001?
You know, I don't know. I think it like sort of started out good, and then we just wanted to make sure it stayed good. You know, like we were lucky. Like, you know, like we have a lot of the advantages of like brother acts, but we're actually not brothers. Maybe I've said this before, but like, you know, it's a thing. Like, it's good to have a shared history with somebody. Like, we know other bands that have no shared history, but they have a really good common aesthetic. Like they come at it in the same way, but sometimes that's actually not enough. Like you actually, if you're really going to be, you know, stuck sleeping on the floor of a van together, like you might need more help than that.
It's hard to measure. I think that, there's a lot of like kind of really cliched sounding things I could say about how we've grown and we've suffered through adversity. We have done that together, and in some sense, you know, I think we're also these relics of this like long ago culture that it seems like it's vanished from the you know.
We are pre-Red Hot Chili Peppers Swatch ad campaign. That is the demarcation line between all bands. In the same way that the truth about cats and dogs is the way you measure a good movie versus a bad movie. Anything better, good movie. Anything worse, bad movie. Bands before the Swatch launch, idealistic after jaded.
There was like a swatch, I felt that you could actually wear it, like the thing. There was like a back piece, and then you could like poke the front of the swatch into the backing.
Okay.
Yeah. Look it up. No, but I feel like that there's so many bands like you guys have like encountered like throughout like your long history who maybe had like, you know, that huge moment or like even like a few like albums, but they just don't like they just aren't doing anything. I mean, you guys are like there's that joke of a T-shirt that you guys have done of the World Tour 2042, which is that's gonna happen. Like, I'm gonna come and watch that tour.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, you guys will still be.
We'll be there.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll be in the wheelchair.
I mean, that's not any bands, right? I mean, like, there's maybe a handful of bands that aren't, and we're not talking about Queen and like the Stones and like people who have like there's a few bands that are able to maintain like what you guys have done over 40 years and are going to keep doing it.
I mean, you know, musicians, you know, it's all hopeless, you know. Like, I had sincere friends of like my mom come up to me and say like, my son's a musician, like, what should we say to him? I want to just run. Just like, don't
quit your day job.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's like, if you don't, it's something you have to do for very abstract reasons. It doesn't work in an abstract way, I don't think it works in a concrete way.
Well, We didn't know what you guys saying yes to letting me make this movie was going to lead to. I've gotten to make a bunch of films and meet a bunch of people I never would have met or made if it weren't for the two of you. You're welcome. Love you both, and thank you for doing this. They've done press all day, so I'm gonna let them.
Only 2 questions per person.
Go up the aisle. I'll let them go up the aisle, so give them another round of applause and say. Thanks to all, you're the best, and as I said, you can come out in next Saturday night, we're going to have a great screening of Crown with Paris.